impression, what you think this coronavirus is going to impact on the wider economy, but particularly on your business, which is a high-tech business, and you would have thought would actually ride this recession out pretty well. Is that your impression?
It's a hard time for everyone. The outlook is pretty good. In the automation market, everyone's expecting that as we progress through this, the world, when it reconfigures in whatever form, is going to be incredibly focused on driving automation to drive operational resilience and efficiency and effectiveness. So we're expecting a significant uptick later in the year.
And any sectors where you think automation will have a particular impact?
The reality is, and a lot of the commentators and analysts are saying, that what COVID-19 has done is massively accelerate digitization. I think that attitude is going to change. And so we're going to see a significant change in direction, I think, towards networked technologies and cloud-based platforms. And that's bound to impact all industries.
What about law firms and accountancy firms? Are they going to be impacted by some of these big trends, or, will they ride out this recession like they've rode out, the last every recession?
The thing about our society, right? Everybody needs law, and everyone needs to count up the numbers at the end of the year. So I think generally it's not recession-proof, but it's a damn good industry, right? So, and pretty resilient to change. It just means that the nature of the demands on it will change, but there'll be money to be made. If you look at the accountancy space, there's a lot of interest in building platforms which will basically automate the audit process. For a great example, a piece of work we're doing with a company called Evolute IQ is to help banks construct new contracts, or repaper is the term, for the finance industry as LIBOR rate disappears, and organizations are required by regulators to create new contracts which refer to a new interest rate. And there's trillions of dollars at risk in that process. And your choice is, do I pay for some senior partners in a firm and an army of paralegals to read 100,000 contracts and write new ones, or do I get Mike's robot to do it? The automated solution is about a third of the cost, and takes a few months instead of a year and a half. So
who's going to be running this? Is it going to be the legal departments, the finance departments, or is it going to be the external advisors? Because one argument saying, well, the clients themselves can access this technology and take out the need for their external advisors.
What automation is doing generally is to take large volumes of data and extract it, run some algorithms and present the data. It still requires those people with a lot of experience to make the decisions and drive the advice. Automation means that a much better quality of data is going to be available to lawyers than hitherto, and much faster. So it'll have a huge impact, I think. But it doesn't take away the role of the law firm, in my view.
So to summarise, it sounds like your view is that the professions are amazingly kind of resilient as a profession.
Yeah.
That the nature of their work will change, but actually technology can enable them to be faster and cheaper and higher quality.
It might. I think if I were a smaller firm, the worry bead that I'd have would be the large firms investing, either individually or jointly in platforms that provide automated legal services. You could see an environment where there are sorts of kind of like frequently asked question type platforms which will emerge, where you can not necessarily get advice, but you can get guidance. So what we'll find over the next 10 years is, what we start to understand is we start off by automating a lot of routine, and the boundary between routine and higher value, what we see as more complex, more creative work, actually we start to understand you can codify an awful lot of that.
Perfect. So it's it's bottling wisdom.
But I tell you, that essence in that little bottle, for the people who make it first, will make a lot of money.
Fine. We've talked about there still being a need for professionals to interpret. What does this mean for the sort of skill sets of professionals going forward? Because traditionally, their education has been very much focused on understanding finance, understanding law. Do you think there's going to be a change of skills required?
I think there's going to be a change of skills required of everyone in the new workplace, right? I mean, if you look at Australia, where there's been a lot of investment in blockchain, the key thing there is the creation of smart contracts, electronic, automated contracts in Australia, means that the contracts are written in code. Now, the law firms or the largest law firms in Australia are now saying, right, if we're recruiting people to our business, then we expect them to speak English or other languages, but they have to be able to code as well.
It feels like this could be massive implications for the kind of target operating model of these businesses. But at the moment, they've got, as a pyramid structure based in quite expensive offices in the centre of town, some offshoring. What's the operating model going to look like, let's say, in 10 to 20 years' time?
I don't think you have to wait for 10 to 20 years' time. I think the current environment is going to accelerate some fairly rapid changes. I mean, if you take a general view about in any industry, what we've seen is this term going digital, right? The digitization has been digital at the interface with customers or suppliers, right? Well, what happens is, in many cases, is that the surface is the fact there's so much analog behind the scenes. So I expect the operating models of all industries and people questioning is, right, how do we drive flexibility into our organization and how do we digitize front to back? But it's not just going to be digitization within the organization, it's going to be digitization end to end in the supply chain. Risk directors will now be, looking again at their operating models and making adjustments in just the same way that banks had to after the crash of 2008.
So, kind of pulling this together, if you...
Good luck.
The managing partner of a professional firm, you're under a lot of pressure on cash. Time is of the essence because you're firefighting. What would be your kind of strategy over the medium term?
Well, I mean, I think it's been pretty clear, digital, right? So if you're not actually focusing on putting data at the heart of your business and your business model, and you're not, accelerating the move to digital law, then you're exposing the long-term sustainability of your business to great risk. If you move quickly in the front of the curve, you should get a tremendous uptick in productivity, from which the rewards could be exponential. If you're at the back end of that development, then you'll find yourself priced out of the market.
And in terms of how to do that in a way that doesn't require lots of quite risky capital investment, because that's the conundrum, is you can't be investing millions and for their chance to be unsuccessful. Well,
I think that comes down to what's your strategy, right? And it's quite evident to me the largest firms are evolving its strategies and partnerships and groupings together to start to look at building platforms, because a platform in a single firm is useful for efficiency, but platforms that span geographies and firms starts to get interesting.